Hello there, it's Mike Yao with Fire in the Head Productions. So last week, maybe a little more than a week, 7, 8, 9 days ago, I did a video about Red Sun, which is the new tabletop role-playing game that I'm working on, as some of you may or may not know. So I did a Let's Create a Red Sun character video, and I kind of showed the character sheet, and I walked everybody through the Red Sun rules, which are about 80, 85% done, written. And yeah, that was kind of fun. The video hasn't done quite as well as I thought. I've only got like one like on there, which is kind of odd. But whatever. It doesn't really. It's not a big deal. But I keep making these things occasionally on the side anyway. So today is about creating a Savage Kingdoms 10 or X character. So if you haven't watched the past videos, the reason I name the next edition of Savage Kingdoms, assuming I even actually go through and really do it, or at least publish it, is because X is 10, right? So Roman numeral for 10, so it means 10th anniversary because it will be this year, 2024. 2024 is the 10th anniversary of Savage Kingdoms, which first came out in 2014. I actually technically really was done kind of 2013, but it wasn't really like out there and published and kickstarted and stuff till like 2014. So really, so Savage Kingdoms X is Savage Kingdoms 10th anniversary. All right, so today I want to show you how to make a Savage Kingdoms character, Savage Kingdoms X character. Now, keep in mind this is the rules right now are alpha level. They're not even in beta yet, I would say. They're not even fully written. I mean, I've only gotten maybe 40% of it written, but I have a pretty good idea in my head. The stuff that I haven't actually written out yet is pretty much in my head. There's a few things knocking around. So this is not a complete rule system yet. Red Sun was more complete, which is why I did the character creation video. But I went ahead, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go ahead and do like a preliminary character creation video for Savage Kingdoms X. So without further ado, here we go. So here is a look at the playtest character sheet for SKX. This is one version of it. This is not form fillable. This is a good old fashioned pencil version. I haven't converted into like a form fillable PDF yet. So there you go. But speaking of form fillable PDF, here's that version. So we'll actually probably just kind of follow along on this one. Even though the type is smaller, but you know, it's all nice and neat. It's a fairly basic sans serif font that you could follow along. And there you go. So as you can see, I don't know if you've watched the last video, the Red Sun character sheet compared to this one. The Red Sun character sheet to me is a little bit cleaner because that system is in some ways simpler, but there's a hidden complexity to it, the Red Sun. SKX, Savage Kingdoms, is kind of like that too, but it's more obviously complex, and that's why you have a little more busyness on the character sheet. So just to kind of go, so at the very top of the character sheet, so I'm not doing anything fancy, kind of like the last video where I'm not doing this screen shareable thing. I'm just holding up a character sheet to the camera. And to me, it's of course backwards, so I'll just kind of struggle through it like last time. So at the very top, the character's name, Amenhotep. So Amenhotep sounds very Egyptian. In fact, it literally is an ancient Egyptian name, and that's because he is from a kingdom called Ar. So the Aryans are based on ancient to Middle Kingdom Egyptians and Savage Kingdoms. And so that's why his name is Amenhotep, or her. Yeah, I mean, you could make it, it doesn't matter. So the calling is priest, as you can see. So this character, I'm just going to say he, because I think that's what it was intended, but it doesn't matter again. So he is a priest and a priest of Arius, I think, or a priest of Zer. We'll get to that in a second. Age 27, height and weight, all that kind of basic stuff at the top of the character sheet, which is pretty indicative of most tabletop role-playing games. Then we get down into the more Savage Kingdom specifically stuff. So over here we have the attributes. So Dungeons and Dragons and Pathfinder calls them ability scores, but in this game system and several others I've seen, we call them attributes. And there's 6 of them, kind of like in D&D. They are named a little bit differently. So you've got agility, physique, vigor, intellect, magnetism, and willpower. All of those are probably self-explanatory. The one some people, like some of the younger kids that I run this for on occasion, magnetism is, you know, kind of like charisma. It's your animal magnetism, how magnetic you are. Not necessarily in the literal sense, but Vigor, I guess that should be kind of obvious too. That's kind of like your constitution, your health, how vigorous you are. Intellect is like intelligence. Agility, I think, is self-explanatory. Physique is a combination, so it's not only your strength, your physical strength, but also kind of your size. It's all in there. So you could be like a fairly small character, but maybe you have like really good wiry muscle strength, and so maybe your physique is like maybe a little higher than you would think. Or you could be like this really massive kind of like overweight character that doesn't have a lot of muscle mass, but still physique might be kind of up there just from sheer size. Willpower, I guess, is pretty obvious too. Your mental defiance and will to to resist something or to go forward with something. Then we've got, let's see, in the middle there, you can see where it says health. So that's good old health. A lot of game systems use that terminology. So this character has 12 maximum, and so the second number 6 is staggered. So if you saw the Red Sun video, or if you were used to the other previous editions of Savage Kingdoms, that condition is still there. It works really well. I like it, so it's still in the design. Meaning that when you get to half of that health number, when you get to half your maximum health, you are staggered as a condition. That means you suffer -2 to all your die rolls, your defense, and to your mobility, until you can get healed or recover somehow above that half number. And there's a talent called Grit that can allow you to resist that a little bit easier. So in previous in SK3, it was an automatic thing. I've gotten rid of that. You now have to make a endurance roll, which I think would be better. I think it works better because the way it was before, I think it was a little too powerful that it just always worked. It was a little easier to deal with, but it was just a little much. So, all right, and then below that, you've got stamina. Stamina works similar to health, except for stamina fuels spells and certain combat maneuvers, and even a few social talents, or even a few rare things like lycanthropy, forcing yourself into like a werewolf form or something like that. So yeah, that's your fuel to power certain things, and this character has 14 at max and is considered fatigued when he gets to half of that, which is 7. You can probably see it right there in the old character sheet. And there is a talent that can make you resist being fatigued as well, called Tireless. So that will return in SKX as far as I'm concerned at this point in time. Renown, as you can see right there, Renown is still a thing. It was also a thing in Red Sun. This character only has 0. It's your magnetism plus, I think that might have actually miscalculated that. Nope, it's right. So it's your starting Renown is your magnetism plus your it used to be plus 1/10 of your age, but I've gotten rid of that. So what does it actually say on there? Oh, plus advancement. So when this character reaches the first advancement, so I guess like first level in some game systems, he would gain a point of renown just by virtue of being or doing stuff and earning experience. Or if he ends up getting a talent, certain talents can boost your renown by 1 or 2, like being highborn or stuff like that. So, but this character just has a 0. So very few people have really heard of him, other than like his direct family and such and friends. So going over here would be, let's see, what else do we have? Oh yeah, this will be interesting and slightly controversial. See where it says defense. So in previous editions of Savage Kingdoms, you had dodge defense and parry defense. That's back. I almost unified it into one defense, kind of like in Red Sun, because I think it's simpler. But I kind of like the uniqueness of Savage Kingdoms having 2 different defenses, and from the feedback I've got, a lot of people like that as well. Because one is based on your skill in melee, your ability to parry blows and or use a shield, and the other is literally dodging out of the way of stuff. So in other words, one is based on physique and one is based on agility. And so game design wise, that also allows you to uh, prevent stacking so much. So in other ones, making the thing split between 2 different attributes, and then whatever skill levels you put into that governing skill. And then over here it says shield, and it's blank because this character doesn't have a shield and probably will never use one because he's a very his physique's only -1, right? So he's below average strength, and is more of a spellcaster, a sorcerer, or actually a priest. But he is a priest who knows some sorcery, which we'll get to in a second, or magic. So going back to attributes really quick, I kind of skimmed over that. So he's +1 in agility, which is slightly above average because plus or minus zero. Zero is average. Physique -1, a little below average. Uh, Vigor +2, so pretty healthy, of decent amount above average. Intellect, decent amount above average at +2. And magnetism +0 and willpower +0, which are average. So this guy's pretty smart, also healthy, but and is somewhat agile, but not particularly physically strong. Right. So let's see. Well, go back to where I was. So notice how on this character sheet, dodge says +2 and parry is +0. That's because I was during playtesting, I was experimenting with doing active defenses. So in other words, when a enemy attacks you, it would be a base number, and you get to roll your defense against it, which sounds really cool and all. And there's some other games that are kind of doing that, but in the playtesting, I don't know, it didn't actually work really as well as I thought. So I might probably go back to the base system, and then as an optional rule, I'll have active defenses. So, but trust me when I say I almost think like kind of the original way of doing it was better. But we'll see. Like I said, it might be an optional rule. So if I get rid of the plus the active stuff or just make it optional, instead of +2, that would be a 12 dodge parry, and +0 would be a 10. So those of you who know Savage Kingdoms, you will know that those are the numbers that you have to beat. You want to beat as much as possible because that's the damage you deal with a weapon. For example, if this character is struck, someone stabs a spear at Amenhotep, he can choose to dodge or parry. So he can only parry if he has a shield or weapon in his hand. In this case, he's probably going to dodge because he's better at it, right? So you'd have to do a 12, and say the spear wielder rolled a 17 on his attack roll. He beat the defense by 5, so he scored 5 points of damage minus any armor that Amenhotep would have, and I probably doesn't have any because he's pretty light and mostly a spellcaster type person and scholar. So there you go. So 5 points of damage, and then with a spear, there's no armor piercing. But if you were to be hit by a great axe, for example, that's +3 armor piercing. So that actually would have dealt 8 points of damage, and that would have put poor Amenhotep down to 4 health, and he would be well into the staggered category. He would still be conscious, but pretty hurt and staggered. So yeah, just to give you a little quick example. See how simple it is, actually. All right, so it looks daunting, but it's really not. So this is where can I go next? Let's see, we did health, stamina, renown, right? Where's mobility on this thing? Um, Allow me to peek around for a second. Oh yeah, so towards where it says experience, just to the side of that, you've got initiative. Initiative is agility plus willpower. In this character's case, +1. So that's what you add to a D20 roll, a la D&D. The difference in Savage Kingdoms is anytime you make a D20 roll, you can possibly critically succeed. So even initiative, you roll a natural 20, it explodes, meaning that you roll the dice again, or die again, and add that to. So if in this case, say if you roll a natural 20, that's a 21, and we roll again, so he gets an 8. So he's got a 29 on initiative. And if he scores 20 above the opponent's initiative, he has critically succeeded, meaning that he gains an extra action in the opening round of combat, or whatever action scene that it is, which is typically combat. And then we've got below that, we've got luck. This character it's based on it's 5 plus your intellect or magnetism, whichever is higher. In this case, it's 7. Luck is an expendable resource, just like in past editions of SK. I've waffled back and forth of going to like 3 luck points per session kind of thing, like Red Sun does. But I really like the uniqueness and I think most people do too. I really like SK's luck system that I created a long time ago, and I kind of want to keep it. The cool thing about it is that so you start with 7, which seems pretty high, but you don't gain luck back per session. You gain 1 luck point per advancement that you gain. So what it does is allow you, you have the potentiality of using luck, but it's going to wind out on you. And so, narratively narratively speaking, that means it's kind of going with the old trope about how your run, eventually your luck runs out. And so, and that's true if you're not really careful. In fact, 2.5 year long in-person SK campaign that I've run with some of my local actor buddies. I think all of their characters are now at 0. There might be 1 or 2 characters with 1 luck point left. Actually, one of the newer characters has like 4 left or something, so that would make sense. But so they're just like out of luck now. So the gods have favored them enough and are not as active in their lives, I guess, is one way to look at it. So that's luck, and then after that, and again, just like in past editions, luck is used to, you can spend a luck point to make it to re-roll a die to add +5. Actually, in SKX, I'm thinking about getting rid of the +5 things. It's a little metagamey, but we'll see, maybe. Or you can gain an extra action in combat. You can boost your defense by 5. In other words, takes 5 less points of damage. Yeah, stuff like that. The normal kind of uses, other than possibly the +5 thing, like I just said, might go away. After luck, you've got what does it say in there? Mobility. So mobility is I think it's 7, right? 7 plus agility plus your physique. In this character's case, it's 7 because he has +1 agility and -1 physique. So he's got average mobility. That's how many yards you can move in an action. So now let's get into a new thing. So I'm kind of doing what I did with Red Sun. I've created a 3-action combat system. Um, and I'm thinking, in Red Sun, it's like basically still like a 6-second round. So every action is basically 2 seconds. SK, it might work out, and there's a bunch of different reasons which I won't go into in this video. It might work out better to have those might be 10-second combat rounds. So each action is roughly like 3 seconds, 3 1/3 seconds. It works out with the math better. I'll just say that. So anyway, this character could move as 1 action 7 yards. So, or he could take a second action to move 7 yards. Or a third action move 7 yards, so 21 in total. However, if you really want to move fast, there is just like in Red Sun, there's the ability to sprint, and sprinting is 5 times your mobility. I don't think it's on this character sheet, because again, this character sheet isn't final. This is like a playtest character sheet. So yeah, 7 times he could run 35 yards in. Oh, that's right. In this case, the math doesn't work out. The math, it's 35 yards in 6 or 7, maybe 8 seconds is about average. Maybe it's slightly above average for people, but 35 yards in 10 seconds is pretty slow. When I was played a lot of sports, yeah, I ran like a 10-3 or something, 100-yard dash, which is kind of ridiculous because there's no way I would like pull a muscle. So so that was 35 is a little on the slow side. So anyway, that doesn't really matter. So as for now, whatever it is, he could move 7 yards as an action, or if he wants to spend all 3 actions to sprint, he could move 35 yards, and that actually costs a stamina point as well to sprint. Okay, so what else do we have? Right. Oh yes. Go back to the shield thing. So this character, it's blank because he doesn't typically use a shield. Now, if he were to pick one up, then you could. So shield basically runs off of your melee. Where's it at? Your melee, your parry defense. And it has its own little slot there because it's important to know that do you have the shield equipped or whatever. So a medium shield adds +2 to your defense, a buckler adds +1, and a large shield adds +3 to your parry defense. And also shields can block other things too, like certain spell effects, things that have physical things that can be blocked. Obviously you can't block with a shield a mental spell effect or something like that, but or an area effect type thing. So, all right, where else can I go here? Let's see. Oh, maximum skill level. So that's in the skill section here, which I'm about to go into. Actually, you know what? Let's go to talents first because skills are extremely important in the system, but talents in some ways almost overarch all of that. So these are what I was alluding to earlier. So when you choose your race or culture, there's a menu of talents you can choose from, kind of like in Red Sun. And you have 10 points to spend. And so this is the cost. This shows you like Zirconian Blood costs this character 6 points to build. I don't know what it says battle talents for. I think I forgot to erase that. So basically what I've done here is I separated, I've got blood talents, battle talents, mystical talents. And again, I don't know if the character sheet will be like this. In the previous editions, you just all talents were just they weren't necessarily in a category. But I'm thinking with SKX, I may try to, if there's enough room in the character sheet to categorize everything, it might be a little, I don't know, better to organize that way. So that way you can just glance and look, oh, what are my battle talents? Oh yeah, I have concentrated defense, or oh, I have a blood talent called Zarkonian blood. That's blood talent means it's something that's a bloodline, something that you have to be have at character creation. You can only have one of them. Um, so and then mystical talents, and he's got four of those, which makes sense because he's a very mystic type character, a priest, and specifically he's a cultist. So he's not even a priest of like an official traditional religion. So the term cult is kind of how we use it nowadays, but not really. It's more how it's used in sword and sorcery or fantasy fiction. Meaning that, at least in Savage Kingdoms, the way I do it is that a cult means that it may or may not it's a religious type thing, but it's beyond the tradition of the culture that it's in. So it's probably underground and hidden or elite or unique or something or secret, and it might eventually rise to some power and become like an actual religion at some point. And there's several examples of that in the Savage Kingdoms lore and history. But in this case, he's a cultist to Zur. So Zur or Zur, Zur actually is, I think, I mean, it's my word. I guess that's how I've been saying it. I don't know. I've said it different ways. Zur, which basically just means in ancient Aryan means darkness or dark, is an ancient serpent lord. So he is a serpent god of darkness and forbidden knowledge. So all things that darkness kind of represents, not only not only kind of seediness and evil, but more people would worship uh, Zor not for that necessarily, but mostly for the interesting things they can get from darkness, like forbidden knowledge and that kind of thing. So that sort of cult attracts people like that. And so back, just a little history. Back in there was an ancient realm named Zarkon, and Zur or Ar was a province, a southern province of it, and some of you guys who play Savage Kingdoms already know the history. So there was this big war called the War of Light and Shadow. It lasted about 5 years. Ar kind of rose up against the other Zarkonian city states, and it was pretty nasty. And they even had the help of some of the Sleer, the Serpent folk, and they were able to finally overthrow the Witch Lords of Zarkon. And then Ar kind of survived, even though it was pretty. They had to rebuild a lot of it, but became its own realm. Zarkon is now just a blighted wasteland. This is like 2,200 years ago in like standard current day Savage Kingdoms lore. And the main god of Zarkon was Zur, was this forbidden serpent god of knowledge that some say was really just Slur, which is the a Sleer god that was whose knowledge of this deity was handed down to the Zarkonians. And since they couldn't really pronounce the Slerian word Slur correctly, it just over time became Zur. But then some people will say it's actually two different deities. I've done videos about this before where I do it on purpose. I kind of leave some of my lore purposely ambiguous because game masters can make their own decisions. Or more interestingly, I think, is to literally have it that way because just like in our real world, there's arguments about historical things that happened or how accurate some of it was, and so I think that's important with fantasy world building as well. So going further down with mystical talents, he is also a death mage, meaning that he knows death magic. There's 7 disciplines of the magical arts or the sorceress arts: um, air, earth, fire, water, life, death, and shadow. So he's a death mage and a shadow mage. So he knows 2 different types or 2 different disciplines of magic. And so that's kind of cool. Death magic is kind of as it's like mostly necromancy. It's also some divinational type necromancy, like speaking with the dead and um, decay spells and stuff like that. Kind of nasty stuff. And then shadow magic can be also a little nasty, but it's more neutral. It's your divinations and your illusion magic, and then in some cases your literal shadow, like your literal light and dark magic, like conjuring light or conjuring darkness is shadow magic. But it's also mental magic and divinations. So ritual sacrifice is another talent. So that's a talent that allows you, if you sacrifice a creature and a ritual to your deity, in this case Zur, you can gain a boost to your like spell casting or save stamina points. It gives you some boons, in other words. So that's what all these talents cost. And so he would have selected up to 10 points worth from his culture, which is Aryan. And then he got 10 points for his calling, which was priest, right, up here. And then you're left with, gosh, now I forgot how many. I think it's 15? Huh. I think I haven't quite decided. Maybe that's why I don't actually know. So then I think you have a pool of, I think it's 15. 15 talent points towards the end of character creation that you can spend on whatever. And that goes back to what I was saying about callings. A calling gives you a general idea, and then these other talent points you can spend literally on whatever talents that you. Now, again, you have to be able to meet the prerequisites. So a lot of talents have prerequisites. So don't expect to get heavy hitter unless you have like a skill level or two in brawling or what whatever. So a lot of it just makes sense. And in each talent listing, it'll literally list the prerequisites if there are any. But most of them do have some kind of prerequisite. For example, Death Mage and Shadow Mage, you would have to have an intellect of at least +0 to even learn any sort of magic. Um, even though Death Magic itself runs off of Vigor and Shadow Magic runs off of Intellect. So, as you can see, there's a couple of attributes that are involved in some of these abilities. And then over here is stamina point cost. So certain things, concentrated defense cost a stamina point when you use it. Basically, concentrated defense boosts your defense by +2, but you have to spend 2 of your 3 actions just defending, and the third action can't be an attack. It has to be like a move or something, some other thing, or drawing another weapon or something else. So, because that's why it's called concentrated defense. You're literally concentrating on defense only and no offense. And that costs a stamina point every time he uses it. Death Mage, the reason it says 1+ is because death magic spells can cost anywhere from 1 to 5 or 6 stamina point, depending on how powerful the spell is. At this advancement 0, he's only going to have up to 2 skill levels in death magic, which we'll get to in a second. So he's only going to be able to cast spells that are minimum magical art spell level of 1 or 2, or skill level of 1 or 2. Same with shadow magic. All right, and that's why it's also 1+ for shadow magic. So, speaking of which, that's enough about talents. Actually, let's go down below talents to the counterbalance of talents, and these are weaknesses. In Savage or Red Sun, I've called them complications, but I keep going back on for like in some ways I like weaknesses because it's kind of a harder, grittier word, but then I kind of like complications because not every weakness is necessarily like a weakness. They're more like complications. So I don't know. But right now, I'm using the old SK word from previous editions, weaknesses. So they give you bonus points. Well, the main thing is role playing wise, they give you some cool role playing things. The secondary benefit, some people might say the primary benefit, but in my opinion, the secondary benefit is the bonus points you get for it. So this character has addiction to Purple Lotus, and it's a major addiction. So Purple Lotus in this setting, also known as Desert Lotus, um, a lot of sorcerers like to make incense out of it or breathe it because it gives you extra stamina. And so this guy, and the history in my head about him is that he, being the priest and sorcerer that he is, he just became addicted to it because he used it all the time. And all the magical lotus plants, there's like 6 or 7 types in the setting, are addictive. The least addictive is white lotus, the one that is like can heal you, but even that one's addictive, can be addictive. So he's obviously addicted in a major way. So that is a DR difficulty rating 18 to resist. So if he goes, let's see, an addiction has to be attended to, yeah, every 3 days. So if he goes more than 3 days without inhaling or somehow interacting with Purple Lotus, he will have to make a resolve roll against a DR 18, which is pretty difficult since it's major, or suffers some penalties. I think it's -1 to willpower until he can get that fix. So -1 to willpower can be pretty bad because that runs that's any skill or talent that's governed by willpower, including his stamina, right? Because that's featured in the formula. All right, the next weakness is he's a heretic. He's a heretic of to priest of Arius, which kind of makes sense. So again, with his history, he originally trained as an acolyte and then probably a lesser anointed priest of Arius. Arius is a god of light and enlightenment of the kingdom of Ar, and really kind of opposes Zur, the god of darkness. So this character in my headcanon was a priest or at least an acolyte and got tired of it, or maybe got tempted, got corrupted, and all this like forbidden lore of Zur, and so left the well, probably didn't leave. He probably, since he's a heretic, probably was caught doing breaking some of the codes of the order of Arius, probably practicing forbidden magics or forbidden alchemies or something, and was excommunicated and is now branded, perhaps not literally, but maybe literally, a heretic. And that gives you some negatives whenever you're to your renown. Like if people hear of you through your renown, that can often be at least a -2 to -5 on your persuasion rolls. Dealing with people from Priest of Arius who have heard of you and know that you're a heretic, so they're not going to trust you as much, which makes sense. And then his racial abilities, like most all the human cultures, you get 3 skill specialties to choose from, which we're about to go to. So that sets up our talk about skills as I suddenly look beyond the character sheet. So the skill section is right here. There are, I said before there were 30 skills in the game, and I thought there were, but when I last counted, there were like 28, so I must have, I don't know, miscounted, or I don't think I got rid of any in this edition. I might. Sorry, I just knocked a cup off the desk. I might, I'll go ahead and just tell you guys since I'm on the subject. So I might get rid of disguise as a skill, although I hate to because I really like when people do that kind of stuff, and make it a specialty of performance because it does use magnetism, and you are kind of using some performance art in disguise because you're like kind of inhabiting a character. Um, in addition to like the physical disguise work, which is still all character building to speak a little bit as an actor, but so I don't know though. Maybe not. I mean, it's only a tier 1 skill, which I'll get to in a second, and what that means anyway. So maybe I'll just leave it. And I was also thinking about getting rid of lock picking because it's such a outlier, and you could pretty easily fold it into crafting or sleight of hand. On the other hand, it is kind of a specialty skill, so I don't know. And the only reason I would, well, the main reason I would be getting rid of those two if I do is I'm thinking about, so if you look down here to persuasion, you've got perception, performance, and persuasion, the 3 pers. So I was thinking about, and I hate to be too D&D 5e by doing this, but it kind of is, splitting those into diplomacy, deception, and intimidation. So right now you can do all of those. Those 3 things exist, but they are specialties of persuasion, which is kind of how I liked it, in the previous editions. But I'm rethinking it now. I don't know. So persuasion, yeah, might get split into those 3. I'm not real sure. The problem is coming up with specialties if you do split it out. So when you intimidation, for example, now you have to come up with specialties for that, which is kind of easily done. You could uh, intimidation of a specific culture, or when you speak a specific language. So I don't know. They're kind of tweaky, but maybe they might work. Diplomacy would have stuff like maybe your specialty is yeah, in a specific language, or when dealing with a certain culture or race or something like that. Same with deception. Deception could have all of that too. I mean, you could make a case for like fast talking or bargaining, but that's kind of all part of it anyway. You can't really make lying as a specialty of deception because that's already kind of what it is. So you see my dilemma. You see why I have not split up to 3 so far in the previous editions of Savage Kingdoms, but I am considering it. But I don't know. I might just talk myself out of it right there. So, and that is a tier 2 skill, which I'll get to in a second. All right, so back to the skills themselves as they currently exist. So, by the way, so maximum skill level. So, in previous editions of Savage Kingdoms, you could start with maximum skill level of 3, in a given skill. Now it's only 2. So before before anybody cries like, "Oh my God, you're nerfing us and stuff," um, first of all, yes, slightly, but secondly, there's a good reason for it, which I'll get to in a second. So you can only start with skill level 1 or 2 in any of these skills because maximum skill level is 2. Like I said in previous editions, these could be 3s, or some of them could be 3s. These are specialties. Well, actually, before I get to that, so this is the governing ability. Like, for example, the first skill I think is Where am I at? Acrobatics. That's based on agility, and then this character has 1 skill level in it. So that means skill level basically means some training. It's a very basic training, 1 skill level, for a total of +2, which is why he has a 12 or +2 dodge defense. Um, the next skill would be, I think it's alchemy. Am I reading? Or is it animal? Yeah, alchemy. This character is pretty good at that, which kind of makes sense being a priest and having a pretty good intellect and being a cultist. His intellect is 2, has 2 skill levels in it for a total of +4. So that +4 is what you're rolling, adding to the d20 roll when you make a skill roll. And then he has a specialty in oils. Uh, so with alchemy, you have to your specialty choices are like elixirs, oils, um, dusts or powders, acids, stuff like that. So I chose oils for him, which I thought was kind of interesting. It's also very, kind of Egyptian. Um, yeah. So, and as you can see, some of these he's not trained at. That he's got -1 physique, so that these skills are he's -1 at. His next skill specialty is down here with looks like healing arts. He has a specialty in treating poisons. Has a +4. So his base healing arts is +2. He has actually no training in it. It's just raw intellect. So he's just, smart enough guy to kind of know what to guess at when treating people without any real training. What else can I show you? Oh yeah, another specialty is urban, and that's from I think perception. Yeah. So when he's in an urban environment, and the reason this exists for Aryans is that there's 3 major cities in Ar, these big pyramidal cities. And everybody else in our almost everybody in our lives in these cities. There's a few like people live in smaller villages, but it's really rare. So those 3 big cities are easily over 10,000 people each. So any city that's considered like over 10,000 people is considered sort of urban. Actually, it might be 5,000 now I think about it, but it's kind of a loose thing. It's up to the GM. So if he's in one of those big cities or some other big city across the world, across the continents, um, he's +4 when using perception in those big cities and +2 everywhere else, like in the forest or in the desert or in the mountains or whatever. So because he's used to paying particular attention in cities and he kind of knows how they all work and stuff like that. That's the reason. So there you go. All these skill points. Oh, by the way, skills. I think you have 25, which is what we had before. Um, and then each race culture gets 3 to choose 3 skill specialties. So that's where they came from. So when you hit skill level 3, just like in previous Savage Kingdoms editions, you get to choose a skill level. So if say at the next advancement, if he moves, he puts some skill points into alchemy to make that skill level 3. Then he would gain another specialty, and that might be powders +6 or acid +6 or something like that. So cool. Oh, and there's to finish my thought about the skill level stuff. So there used to be 10 skill levels to skill. Now there's just 9. So that's why it's kind of pared down. I still might go to 10. If I do, I'm still probably going to keep maximum skill level at 2. And there's a whole math reason for that as well. So yeah. So, but right now, so skill levels 1 to 2 means novice, 2 to 3 means adept, 3 to 4 means expert, or 5 to 6 means expert. 6 to 7 skill levels is mastery, or wait, 7 to 8, sorry, and then skill level 9 is grand mastery. So if I do 10, 9, and 10 would be grand mastery, but it seems kind of weird to have 2 levels of grand mastery when that's the cap title, and that's kind of why I wanted to keep it at 9. But I don't know, we'll see. All right. So again, I'm still designing. This is very much an alpha. Skill. Oh yeah. So really quick. So I've gone over this in past videos. Skill tiers. So each skill has three tiers now. I mean, the skills have three tiers now, and most of them are in tier two. And what that means is that's how many skill points it costs to gain a skill level. So now in SKX, whenever you advance, you gain 10 skill points, which sounds awesome because you used to only get 5. However, hear me out. Some skills cost 3 points. A tier 3 skill, which is all the magical arts disciplines, costs 3 points to gain one skill level. So tier 1 skills, however, only cost one skill level. So you could dump all 10 points into tier 1 skills and increase, 9 or 10 skills up to, but they will be tier 1. In other words, lesser use skills or skills that are easier to learn, I guess, narratively speaking. Tier 2 skills, of course, cost 2 skill points per skill level. So that's why you get 10 per advancement. So awesome, but also, not as ridiculously powerful as you think. But I think it's more interesting. You can do more, make some cool decisions when you advance, which is, part of the fun of tabletop gaming. All right, and so every odd number above first, so at third advancement, fifth advancement, seventh, ninth, just like in SK3, one of your attributes goes up, one of these, and that those govern a lot of different things. So that's part of the math of the skill level system. By the way, the math works out better that way. Every advancement, you also gain +1 to luck, which I think I mentioned previously. Yeah, and every other advancement you gain, every odd number advancement you gain +1 renown. So, oh wait, no, I'm sorry. I changed it. It's now every advancement in SKX. That's one of the things I changed. All right, so let's go to the back character sheet, and it'll be pretty quick, and then we'll wrap this video up. Right? Are you still with me? Hope so, because that last video didn't really do quite as good. We'll see. So this one right here, this is the back character sheet. So this has your equipment. So it's set up pretty similar to the previous SK character sheets and not dissimilar to a lot of game systems. There's a reason why this formatting kind of exists. So equipment, bulk is still a thing. I'm using the bulk system instead of counting every pound. So bulk represents, I think I said the same thing in Red Sun. It represents an object, an item that might weigh anywhere from 10 to 15 pounds, maybe even 8 pounds if it's something really bulky. Or maybe up to 20 pounds if it's something that's like kind of easy to handle, but it's kind of heavy, right? That's why it's called bulk. It's not necessarily a weight thing, although that is a large portion of it. For example, this, what's the bulk one there? Lore? Oh, it's a tablet. No wonder. He has a copper tablet. He gains a +2 bonus to 1 lore roll per day. So in other words, this tablet contains a bunch of ancient lore and wisdom on it. And so once per day, he can look at it and go and gain +2 to a lore roll. But it is being a copper tablet is why it's bulk of 1. In fact, it's probably should almost be 2, but I just made it 1. So we'll consider it a smaller tablet with a bunch of little writing on it. Nothing else is bulk 1. However, just like in previous in SK3, every 10-0 items equals 1 bulk. So this guy ends up with 2 bulk. I don't know if I've calculated it correctly. I actually didn't calculate it, but he's in the 0 to 5. He's still in light load with 2 bulk, so he's not carrying a whole lot. He's not slowed down or anything like that sort of thing. And then you've got weapons up here. The weapon stats. He's got a stonewood staff. So there's like a forest of wood that's kind of famous in Southwest R, grows along the shores of this wood that's like almost as hard as metal. It's very solid. And so a lot of scholars and wizardly folk of that realm like to harvest a stonewood staff or club. And then he's got a dagger, and that's it's listed twice because melee and then ranged. Probably didn't really necessarily need to write it that way. Oh, the stonewood staff has armor piercing of 1. So otherwise, its stats are all the same as a regular quarterstaff, but being stonewood, it has armor piercing 1. It hits kind of hard. Armor piercing 1 is just a fancy term for bonus damage whenever you smack someone. So down here are his spells. Or no, actually, I'm looking at languages. Sorry. He knows Aryan, that's his native tongue. It even lists over here. Native, yes. And whether it's a written language or not. And it's yes, it's a hieroglyphic style language. Then he speaks Zaramese, which is a big Persian-esque empire to the north. Um, it's not his native tongue, and then yes, it is also written, and it's a script form of writing. And then he knows Old Zarkonian. So usually any language that has the old in front of it in SK means that it's either defunct or it's just a lore language or an ecclesiastical language. So Old Zarkonian isn't really spoken anymore, but it does exist in a lot of writings, especially spells, especially death and shadow magic spells. So not native, although kinda, because he has Zarkonian blood as a. But again, it's not spoken in modern times in the setting. And yes, it's written. It is a hieroglyphic style of writing as well. Right. So, spells. Where are spells on here? Huh, I think he knows some spells. I mean, yeah, he's a shadow mage and death mage. So they are. So here's spells right here, and it lists all the stats, spells, the discipline, the skill modifier. I didn't have that on previous character sheets, so it'd be nice to have that. The DR difficulty rating it is to cast, so that's the number you have to hit in order for the spell to work, and the stamina cost. The things in parentheses, that's how much it costs if the spell fails. So we're going back to second edition SK, where if you fail in a spell, you only spend half the stamina because not all of the it failed, right? So when a spell succeeds, it costs a little more stamina because all that energy is like being channeled through you. All right, and so he knows Death Speak as a spell, which is a death magic spell. Makes it's actually Death and Shadow, but in this case, it's he's using it as a death spell. Venomous Touch is a death spell. He's +4 with those. Shadow magic spell. He's got a +3 modifier to his magical arts rolls. So pretty good, but not great. So translation is a shadow spell that allows you to translate like languages. So it's kind of like comprehend languages and tongues and like D&D all rolled into one. And then he knows illusory sound, which is like so in the previous editions it was just called glamour, and you could make it sound, smell, or other. But so in SKX, another design thing that I'm doing is I'm trying to. So I thought it was all clever in the first Savage Kingdoms when I had spells that did 2 or 3 different things, like they were all statted out differently. And I've found over time, I mean, it's fine. I found over time those are kind of annoying, and so some of those spells are now broken out into their own spells. So this one's illusory sound, and yeah, there you go. So he knows 4 spells. So you know a number of spells, excuse me, equal to the skill level that you have in that particular magical art. So since he has skill level 2 in both Shadow and Death, that's why he knows 2 + 2. He knows 4 spells. There are ways to start with an additional spell, like the grimoire, grimoire talent, which has a spell recorded in this old book. The acolyte talent, I believe, gives you an extra, meaning that you had some training in church, which this guy did history-wise, but he actually does not have acolyte as an actual talent, so he doesn't get that extra spell. But he starts off with 4, which is not shabby in the system. All right, and then at the bottom we just have like personality traits and goals and hatreds and all that kind of fun role playing stuff, as well as apparently he has a oh right, he has a familiar. I don't think I have it listed on the character sheet. In any case, oh wait, that was one of his culture items. He got to start with an asp, so like a small Egyptian style snake named Seti, I believe. Is that what it says? Seth, which is interesting because Seth is like old Hebrew for snake or serpent, I believe. So a little thing, and it's also a call out to Set from the Conan stories, but the serpent god. Anyway, an asp named Seth. There's the asp's stats, and yeah, you can see his defense is 13, -3 physique because it is a small snake. But its health is 5, its stamina is 11, and its mobility and stuff is on there. Defense, initiative. Cool. And then right here, he's a member of an order, right? The cult of Zur, and his rank in the order is initiate, so that's like the lowest rank because he has a renown of 0. And that's the list the code that they have to follow in order to not be ousted from the cult. Yes, even like a dark evil cult has certain behavioral guidelines. And those are the benefits he gets. He gains an exceptional quality. I'm reading backwards again, so whatever that says. And let's see, dagger, and then he has a +1, two gain and yeah, +1 skill level and death magic. So those are benefits of the order, basically. And then over here, just personality traits. He is again, I'm reading it backwards. So he's driven, cunning, cold, and calculating. All right, that makes sense. And yeah, two. Let's see, what else do we have? Cultizer. None. There's his birthday. He was born in late autumn. His eyes are amber. His skin is kind of bronze, and he's bald. Like a lot of Aryan males, they will shave their heads, and some women often do that too, but they'll wear wigs of camel or horsehide. And he's got two siblings. He was born third, so he's the lowest. So my idea for him is that he's the third born, and so he's kind of like I'm gonna do my own thing and join this dark evil cult. So all right, I think that's gonna about do it. We're at 50 minutes. Wanted to show you guys like a just kind of like at the end of the Red Sun character sheet. I showed you a couple of other little characters really quick. So just really quick, here's another character. He's a Garen or a Garanic. He's from the Garans are like Celts. Um, his name is Kalen Mist Song, which is more of a nickname. It's not like an actual surname. He's probably actually Kalen Mac someone. Um, or actually, Kalen, this could be a female character. That name can go either way. Again, doesn't really matter. Age 21, 110 pounds. Fight. Yeah, this is probably a female. Another -1 physique character. So I promise I've built some high physique characters too. These are all pre-gens, obviously. Agility +0, vigor +0, intellect +2, magnetism +3, very magnetic, and willpower +0. And that's because he is a skald or bard. I would be called a bard from his culture. Skald is more of a northern Viking sort of Nordic thing. So anyway, that's another character, just really quick. 12 stamina, only 9 health, so one less than average. Really quick, he's really good at performing. Obviously, he's a skald. I think he has a +7 in harps. Yeah, there it is. Wait, right there. So yeah, +5 in performance, but he specialized in harps, so +7. Also really good at persuasion. Specializes in diplomacy. Oh yeah, I guess that's another thing I should point out. I mentioned in past videos, but as you probably noticed, in past editions of Savage Kingdoms, specialties were an additional +1, but in SKX they are +2. So you probably noticed that. So they account for a little bit more now. And that again, that is also part of the math thing I was talking about with the maximum skill levels and stuff. So it's all been considered. What else is he good at there with that +4? Empathy, which runs off of perception. So that's kind of like insight in D&D. Lore, he's got a specialty with Fae and history. Those are both +5s. Something with forest, I think it's herbalism. So herbs that grow in the forest, he has a specialty with. Because you can do some cool stuff with herbalism, just like with alchemy. There's like magical herbs that produce cool effects. His weaknesses are obsession with the other world, which is like the Fey world, a minor obsession, and he has a phobia, a major phobia of deep water. So if he encounters any water that's ever waist deep, he has to make a resolve roll to even try to interact with it, or otherwise he cannot cross. Or somebody in the party can knock him unconscious and carry him across or something. But that's worth 2 points. And his obsession with Otherworld, he gets no bonus points because I think it comes from a blood talent. I think he's she-blooded. Um, or I just overlooked it, which is also extremely likely because I don't see why he doesn't get bonus points there. Oh, Fey Touched. The Fey Touched is an other talent. In other words, a miscellaneous one. So at some point he was touched. He entered the other world or somehow interacted with the Fey, and he's Fey touched now, and that has given him an obsession with the other world. So the world beyond, the shadow world, as it's also called. So yeah, I think that's enough. You got to see the main character, Amenhotep, and then a little bit of a second character, Kalen Miss Song. So Thanks for hanging in there. I'm going to end the video now that we're at almost 55 minutes. If you made it this far, thanks, and see what comes up next with Red Sun or Savage Kingdoms X. Talk to you guys soon.